Hello! My name is Alona. Today we're going to talk about adverbs of frequency and frequency expressions. So what are they and why do we need them? Well, we need them when we want to talk about how often we do something. So if you want to find out what these words actually are, keep watching the video. My students, they have asked me a few questions about how often I do some things, and I would like to share with you how often I do it. And in these sentences, you will have a look at the number of phrases, frequency adverbs and frequency expressions. So let's start.
How often do you do it?
So let's have a look. The first thing is this one, drink coffee. Okay, so how often do I drink coffee? Well, I usually drink coffee in the morning. Usually it's 1 cup of coffee in the morning. The next one is work in the office. I work from home most of the time, and I hardly ever go to the office just in case I need something.
Do you go to the gym?
I go to gym twice or maybe 3 times a week if I have time. So shopping! I go shopping, well, I occasionally go shopping. When I need, I go to the shop. I don't like shopping once a week. No, that is not for me.
Are you ill?
Well, I'm sometimes ill, and it can be in spring or in autumn, for example. In my answers, I've used lots of words, adverbs, frequency and frequency expressions. So let's get started with the adverbs of frequency. So adverbs, it's actually the verbs that goes after the verb, but not about the adverbs of frequency. Let's look at the example which I've said. I always drink. I always drink. So where do we have always? Before or after the verb? Yeah, so when we talk about these adverbs of frequency, they are usually before the main verb. I always drink a cup of coffee in the morning. Or I usually drink a cup of coffee in the morning.
Hi. Do you drink coffee?
Okay, let's gonna have a look at the positive, negative and question. So in the positive, we have the adverb of frequency always before the main verb. As well as we have a look at the negative sentence. Again, it is going to be before the main verb. I do not always drink coffee in the morning. You can also say, I do not often drink coffee in the morning. If we have a look at the question, again, it is going to be before the main verb. For instance, do you always drink coffee in the morning?
But I also said I am sometimes ill in spring and in autumn. So when we talk about the verb to be, these adverbs of frequency should be I am where? Yeah, after the verb to be. I am sometimes ill. So let's look at the adverbs of frequency. What are they? So 100% is the word always. Then comes the word usually, or normally, generally. Also, you can say often, frequently. Then comes sometimes, occasionally, rarely, seldom, hardly ever, and never. You see, from 100% to 0. For instance, I told about myself, I always drink a cup of coffee, or I usually drink a cup of coffee in the morning. By the way, speaking about the word often, you can pronounce it with often without T or often with the sound T. So usually British people will say with T sound often, so that sounds alright, don't worry about that.
How often do you, I'm worried.
And don't forget about the rule in English that we have one negotiation, one negative thing in a sentence. So you cannot say, I do not never, whatever, I do not never drive a car. No, you can't say it like this one. You will say, I never drive a car. By the way, it's not true about me, because I sometimes or hardly ever or occasionally drive a car when I need. Right, so you cannot say never, hardly ever. By the way, sometimes we cannot use in the negative sentence as well. You cannot say I do not sometimes drive a car. No, that sounds weird.
Dude, you never do anything crazy. Ever.
Okay, and one more thing about short answers. So if you have a question, yes or no question, right? For example, do you go to the office, or do you play the guitar, or do you swim, for example, right? So do you swim or do you read? Or so your answer will be, for example, no, I never do it. So before the auxiliary. Or no, I hardly ever do. That is sometimes as well possible.
No, I didn't. I never do. You guys always do that.
And one more thing. The word sometimes, usually, you can put also either at the beginning or at the end of the sentence. For example, you can say, I sometimes read a book. Sometimes I read, or I read sometimes. It's also correct. Don't forget about that one. And just very small thing is about the word very often. So when we have the word often, we usually put where? Before or after the main verb? Yeah, so we will say, I often go to the office, for example, right? So we have I often and then go, so before the main verb. But if you have very often, you should put it at the end. I go to the office very often. Be careful.
You ride very often?
Okay, and we have one more thing, it's frequency expressions, so let's have a look at them. So we can divide these frequency expressions, let's say, into big subcategories. So the first subcategory with lower frequency and with, let's say, higher frequency. So let's start with lower frequency. So what are the words? Once in a while, every now and again, every so often. With higher frequency, it will be most days, more often than not, most of the time. Also, you can say most mornings, most days, most weekends, right? So depending on you personally, these phrases can be of higher or of lower frequency. Let's look at some other phrases that can be both of higher or lower frequency depending on you personally. You can also say once a week, once a year, once a day, right? Or you can say once per year, once per week. You can change the word once and you can say also twice, a week, a year. But starting from 3, you need to say times. 3 times a day, 4 times a year, 5 times a week.
Once, twice, or once.
And let's look at some other phrases which we can use here and just try to memorize them. Once or twice a year, every couple of weeks, 2 or 3 times a day, once every 3 months, annually, which means once a year. So where do we put these frequency expressions? So if you have a look at this sentence which I've said, yes, usually we put it at the end, but also you can move and put it at the beginning. It's all right to say at the first place as well. So now you know all the frequency adverbs and frequency expressions, and now your turn. In the comments below, I want you to answer the questions which I've answered. Write how often you do these things and try to use adverbs of frequency and frequency expressions, which you can find below the video. I've already written all of them for you, which I've just mentioned. That was all. Thanks a lot and hope to see you next time. Bye bye.